Let's head to London, where writer and broadcaster Esther Kraku can tell us all about it. Esther, what is it with these Conservative leaders that keep coming up with ideas that Conservative voters won't take to?
Well, I think you've just highlighted the main issue here, which is that the Conservative leaders are not actually Conservative. And this is the problem that we face. There's a huge sort of gap between the parliamentary parties that we have and what the people that typically vote for them actually want. This is one of the reasons why clearly Rishi Sunak lost the leadership contest to Liz Truss, because he's so disconnected from his party's base and from what the party actually wants. You have the Net Zero Scrutiny Group, which is a group made of about 50 backbench MPs, Tory backbench MPs, asking, if heat pumps are as good as you say they are, why do you feel the need to mandate them? This is a man who is saying that he wasn't going to allow, an unpragmatic way to reach net zero. He wasn't going to allow net zero to bankrupt families, but he's going to allow net zero to bankrupt businesses because of talks of this plan to effectively penalise businesses that don't meet, or boiler businesses that don't meet the heat pump installation measures. The prices have gone up by over £120. So he's actually hurting the consumer as well, and he doesn't seem to understand that. The embarrassing thing about this policy, which he seems to be going ahead with, is the fact that he would have to rely on the opposition to get it through, because Labour have already said that they're going to back this measure. So that begs the question, what is the difference between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party? Who will we be voting for if the Tory leader has to rely on Labour MPs to get through unpopular policies with the Tories?
It's a very similar question here and in other parts of the world, I think. But, I mean, Sunak already made this sort of a surprise announcement that he's going to have a 2024 election instead of January 2025. I mean, what's he got to gain in bringing it forward if he's already on the slide?
I mean, I think it's more about looking at what the calendar would possibly look like. So we obviously know 2024 is going to be quite the year for politics. The American elections are going to happen in November, and the EU elections are also going to be taking place. And he really has to time it properly. If he leaves it late until January 2025, there's so many things that could go wrong, particularly after winter when people are not in the best mood. The sun doesn't shine. I mean, I'm sure you can see behind me the sun finally decided to make an appearance here in London. But there's so many things that could go wrong with leaving it as late as possible. He has to get the timing just right. And there's also the reality, the looming reality, that there's very little Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party can do to stave off a complete wipeout. I think they've just accepted their fate. The problem we're now having is really, doesn't matter who you vote for, you're effectively getting the same party if the leader of the Conservative Party has to rely on Labour MPs to get through legislation.
You should come down to Australia, Esther. I mean, we had storms last week and floods and all sorts, but we've got some lovely sunshine out at the moment. Now, there's a new kids show on Netflix called CoComelon Lane. It's raised a few eyebrows. Now, this show was recently purchased by two former Disney execs, one of them Kevin Mayer, who was the CEO of Playboy, of all things, in 2000. And both remain close with Bob Iger, who's turned the Disney, woke as its CEO over there. Now this show has been in the top 10 on Netflix in the US for 5 weeks. So it's quite popular, but a few weeks in, they have a boy dancing around in a tutu and tiara for his gay dads. Have a look at this.
How about you break out those moves for your 2 biggest fans?
I mean, seriously, Esther, could they make it any more obvious?
This is the thing. Whenever people like us point out that there may be some sort of plan going on here, some sort of agenda being pushed, we're called conspiracy theorists. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than this. This is the most popular show amongst the 2+ age group, and yet you have this young boy dressed as a girl dancing for his 2 gay dads. A scenario that would realistically happen 0.001% of the time, right? For some reason, this is being normalized to children. And when parents raise concerns, when parents actually push for alternative forms of media where they don't have to effectively sit with their children and monitor everything they watch because they're scared of the kinds of things that they're being fed, we're told that we're bigots and that we're discriminating against this normal family setup.
I neglected to mention as well that the dads are gay. but one of them is black as well. So, you know, they've got all the bases
Yeah,
covered
exactly. You
here.
have to tick.
So,
I mean, the last thing, they just need to be Muslim and have crutches and have some other form of disability, and you've ticked all the boxes.
They wouldn't be.
What
They
also
wouldn't
happens
be
if the
gay
children
then, would
ask,
they?
if the kid asks how he was born?
Sorry, say that again.
What happens if their young son asks how he came about?
Yeah.
Did they say that he was hatched
Well,
from an egg?
yeah, that's a very fair question, but we don't want to touch these things on these shows, do we? It's all happy, lovely, weird sort of world we're living in. Now, I don't know where all this started, but I keep seeing tweets about Pierce Brosnan's wife. And now, he, of course, was a Bond, much better looking Bond than I am. But they're supposedly suggesting that some women let themselves go during marriage, comparing two pictures of Keely Shea Smith a decade apart, having a go at her like she's turned into some kind of slob. But I have to say, all I see is a beautiful woman in both shots and a couple that are happily married and in love. And I think it's almost like the male version of feminism, where these idiots start to blindly hate the opposite sex. We've only got 30 seconds, Esther, but what is the point here?
Well, I mean, I think the account that posted this ridiculous tweet probably tells more about the philosophy behind these people than anything else. This was from an anon tweet, someone that we don't know. We don't know their face. We don't know if they're married. We don't know if they've had the honour of being married to a woman that's given them two kids, like Pierce Brosnan has. But you've just nailed it on the head. They're just as toxic as modern feminism, and their goal is to keep people apart and miserable. And they're not going to win, unfortunately, because people don't want to be all alone.
Esther Kraku, thank you so much for your time. Merry Christmas.